Matilda was supposed to have inherited the throne of England after her father died. He had even made all of his nobles swear multiple times to acknowledge Matilda as the next monarch. But when her father finally died, Matilda's cousin, Stephen of Blois, swept in and got himself crowned first. Matilda began to fight for her birthright. This battle for the crown between Matilda and Stephen became known as the Anarchy. The country was divided. Matilda and Stephen, in turn, would gain the upper hand. Back and forth it would go. Blood was spilt. Lives were lost. Lincoln Castle had been an important stronghold for over a century by Matilda's day. The castle protected several strategic routes that linked the whole of the center of England. By an amazing feat of deception, one of Matilda's allies had taken Lincoln Castle. Ranulph, the Earl of Chester, was Matilda's half-brother's son-in-law. He was originally pro-Stephen, but a large portion of his lands had been given to the King of Scotland, and so he decided to switch sides. Ranulph trickily sent his wife to pay a social visit to the wife of the man who was looking after the castle. Ranulph came later, pretending he had arrived to take his wife back home. He was welcomed inside, and as soon as he was in, he and his entourage surprised the castle guards, ambushed them, and barred the door. Ranulph had taken Lincoln Castle. He began strengthening the castle so it would be ready for battle should it be necessary. And it definitely would be. Ranulph began alienating the people of Lincoln with his mistreatment, and so they sent a secret message to Stephen, complaining about Ranulph, and told him that Ranulph and his family were going to be staying at the castle during Christmas, and they were only very sparsely guarded. Stephen took this information and decided to seize the opportunity. He brought his men from London to take the city of Lincoln and lay siege to the castle with the help of the townspeople. Ranulph quickly snuck out of the castle and sent correspondence to Matilda's camp, but left his wife, Matilda's half-brother, the Earl of Gloucester's daughter, inside. The Earl of Gloucester had been instrumental to Matilda's cause thus far, and he began making preparations to head to Lincoln to aid his daughter, still held up in the castle, and to meet Stephen in battle. And so the Earl of Gloucester, his son-in-law, Ranulph, the Earl of Chester, and a large number of Welsh troops marched to Lincoln. And when Stephen started to see Matilda's forces, he saw that he was significantly outnumbered. His advisors strongly urged him to retreat or seek a truce, and his clerics reminded him that if he went to battle, it would take place on a Sunday. Stephen adamantly declined and readied his men for attack. The night before the battle, there was a tremendous storm. Rain and hail poured down. Giant claps of thunder and lightning filled the sky. When dawn came, Stephen went to the great cathedral right next to Lincoln Castle to attend service on the Feast of Candlemas. The candle's flame that Stephen was holding during the Mass went out, and the candle broke in his hand. This was believed by those who wrote of the event to be a bad omen of things to come. And so, on February 2nd, 1141, the Battle of Lincoln began. Stephen was joined with 6 other earls and their men. They had the superior position. The Earl of Gloucester and his son-in-law began to charge with their cavalry. Stephen was at the head of a group of infantry, and in response to this, left his superior position to meet them head on. The earls and their men that were supporting Stephen fled, trying to save themselves from an outright slaughter. But Stephen continued on and pressed forward with sword in hand. Metal hit metal. Shouts and cries were heard all around. Stephen's sword broke under the pressure of battle, and he grasped for an axe to continue on. Matilda's men pressed in with their full force. Stephen was finally stopped when a rock was hit over his head. Stephen was taken prisoner. The remaining men that were around him were either killed or surrendered. Stephen, who had fought for years to keep the throne he had stolen, was taken to his cousin Matilda at Gloucester Castle, and then on to her half-brother's stronghold at Bristol Castle, where he was imprisoned. It had been almost 5 years since Matilda's father had died, and it finally seemed like she might actually be queen. Nobles and clergy alike began to believe that now that Stephen was in chains, he was most likely going to stay that way. The church decided to recognize Matilda as the legitimate ruler of England. She was now the Lady of the English. But the wheel of fortune would soon spin again, and the throne would slip through Matilda's fingers once more.